It's no longer a secret. San Martin makes incredible watches. If you've been looking around our watches subreddit recently, you'll know what I'm talking about. Between the humble Rolex collection posts, you'll see that posts about San Martin are becoming more common. This was practically unheard of a couple of years back, but with their popularity rising, their prices have also steadily increased over the years. People have been clamoring for something more affordable from the brand, and San Martin has delivered. They've just released a budget version of their popular BB Pro Homage, and you can get this for $150 or even as low as $120 during the 11/11 sale. That's half the price of the previous model. But what's the catch? Surely they had to cut some corners to achieve that lower price point.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious, and don't call me Shirley.
Are any of those corners they cut deal breakers? Or does this watch live up to their usual high standards? Let's find out. The first area you'll notice the cost cutting in is the packaging. They've went with the older Pelican style case instead of their fancy leather packaging, which is fine because I just store these in a drawer anyway. Now onto the watch itself. The case dimensions are in that sweet spot for most wrist sizes. The measurements are the same as the more expensive version, so it looks like they used the same case for this. Visually, the white dial and steel bezel make it look larger than it is. It looks and wears a bit more like a 40 or 41mm case, so keep that in mind if you prefer a smaller wrist presence. The case itself is built like a tank, and it has that incredible fit and finish that we've come to expect from every San Martin. The case is almost entirely brush, which I love because it hides scratches much easier than polished surfaces. The brushwork is fine and consistent, and they've even managed to match the brushing of the case and the bracelet. The only hint of polishing is on that crisp chamfer running through the lugs and on the underside of the bezel. Honestly, this is some of the best finishing you're gonna find on any watch below $500. The crown is signed with the San Martin logo, and it threads in and out very smoothly. It has a good size, so it feels quite easy to grip and manipulate. Looking at the side of the case, you'll see a slight downward curve towards the lugs. The case feels comfortable, but not as comfortable as the Suggest Homage I reviewed a while back. It took me a while to realize that the lug-to-lug length on the San Martin is 1mm longer than the Suggest. It might sound insignificant, but that extra millimeter really makes a difference. This watch also feels a bit top heavy, so you'll probably want to wear it snug instead of loose. The bezel has a beautiful radial brushing that catches the light and draws your attention towards the dial. The 24-hour markings are engraved and the paint job looks very cleanly done. This is a fixed bezel, so you can only track 2 time zones at once. But let's face it, how often do you need to track more than 2 time zones anyway? If you're not a globetrotter, this will probably be enough for you to keep tabs on friends and families overseas. If you do need to track more time zones, consider a GMT with a rotating bezel instead, or maybe, just maybe, your trusty smartphone. The double dome crystal is made from sapphire, so you don't have to worry about scratching it up. It's slightly raised above the bezel and the clarity is excellent. The clear AR coating they've used does a great job, and it gives you a crystal clear view of the dial. Moving on to the dial, and besides the lower price point, this is probably the other reason you'll want to get this watch. The white dial on their more expensive model wasn't exactly white. It had more of a champagne tone to it. San Martin busted out the Clorox and they gave us a clean, stark white dial on this model. They've also changed the applied logo to a printed logo. I prefer their printed logo on most models. The applied logo just takes up too much attention on the dial, but I know this is very subjective. Which logo do you prefer? Let me know in the comments. The indices on my unit are applied, but they also offer a version with printed indices. They're finished in a sort of gunmetal grey color, which they've also used for the handset. Silver hands against white dials aren't always legible, so the darker gunmetal shade really helps give it some contrast. The GMT hand is painted in a shade of orange that matches the text at the bottom of the dial. The handset overall looks good and proportionate, and I love how the snowflakes on the second and GMT hand line up when they pass by each other. It's a small touch, but it's a nice touch. It's not all unicorns and rainbows though. I did notice a QC issue on my unit. The minute hand isn't properly aligned, it's about 2 to 3 minutes ahead. It's a bit disappointing to see this on a San Martin. This is not the first time either. My 62 Mars Homage also came with misaligned hands, but I've had 5 other models from them with perfect alignment. This could be an isolated issue, but I hope they haven't cut corners with QC to get that lower price point. Surprisingly, San Martin stepped up its Lume game for this budget model. They've used a more potent BGW X1 formula instead of the BGW 9 they have on the more expensive version. The Lume is evenly applied across all the dial elements, and it gives off a strong blue glow that lasts the whole night. If you're a Lume junkie, you're gonna be happy with the Lume here. The movement powering this watch and most GMTs in the affordable spectrum is the Seiko NH34. This is a caller GMT movement. No, it's not gonna call your grandma for you, but it lets you track a second time zone with the GMT hand, as opposed to the jumping hour hand you'll find on traveler GMT movements. Now, onto the bracelet. It looks like the same trailing bracelet on their more expensive model, but looks can be deceiving. Instead of screws, they've downgraded this bracelet to use the pin and collar system. It's not my favorite sizing system, and that's putting it lightly. I struggled to size this more than other pin and collar bracelets I've had. It took a lot of force to remove the pins, and some of them just didn't want to budge, even after I took pliers to them. On the plus side, sizing the bracelet is a one-time thing, so you're not gonna get frustrated by it every day. The mill clasp feels solid, but it doesn't have the same level of finishing as the earlier clasp. The corners feel quite sharp, so you'll probably want to sand this down to be safe. Now, I say this bracelet is a downgrade, but that's just because of the high standards we've come to expect from them. This downgraded bracelet is still better than the ones you get on the new Seiko 5s, and those watches cost 2 to 3 times more than this. Honestly, I have to give kudos to San Martin for even releasing this budget model in the first place. They've listened to enthusiasts and they gave them exactly what they wanted. It feels like they've hit the sweet spot, offering that signature San Martin quality at a price point that many more people will be able to afford. The only corners they cut seem to be the bracelet and packaging, and I feel like they made the right choices with that. They even improved some areas over the more expensive version, and that's not something you see every day. If you've been on the fence, this new budget model is a no-brainer. That being said, I don't think this is the best BB Pro Homage on the market. I'd give that honor to the Suggest. It's slightly pricier, but it's just the better watch, at least for me. Click here to check out my review of the Suggest GMT. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.